The first road trip of the season sees familiar faces taking on their old teams. The Edmonton Elks head east to take on the 1-0 Toronto Argonauts, looking to prove they are indeed a better team from previous seasons, while the Argos want to show their Week 1 win over the Lions was no fluke. Elks Argos Saturday night football out in Toronto, but first it is the Green and Gold Kickoff Show live from Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge right here on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Tune in iHeartRadio as well as on YouTube. Matt Iwanyk, Jay Milne with you here as we will get you set for the Elks taking on the Argos a little over an hour's time, an hour's kickoff, a little over an hour from now, I guess is the words I'm looking for. You can watch it on TSN. Let's take a look at your Edmonton Elks starting lineup. McLeod Bethel Thompson returning to Toronto in his 50th career start. The men protecting him from left to right. I could also need to get this on the screen right there so everyone could see it as well. The men protecting MBT, Ivy, Foucault, Cordy, Jack Cردilla, and Stewart. The receiving core, Lewis, Gittins Jr., Mitchell, Mayala, and Smith. Kevin Brown, the running back. Tanner Green is the fullback. Defensively, Alfano, Kemdici, Curtis, and Brown are the defensive line. The linebacking core is Morgan in between Anderson and O'Neill. In the secondary, Gray, Bratton, Purifoy, Bynum, and Lewis. Beatty kicks, Julian punts, and Javon Leake is your kick returner and punt returner for this one. I didn't actually bring it up. Do you have injury report?
I do.
Do you? Perfect. I didn't bring that up ahead of time.
What do you think?
They're like, hey, you got the injury report ready to go, Jay? And
you don't ask me to do really much on this.
Not for the
broadcast,
beginning first part.
But that's one thing you asked of me, so of course.
But last week you asked if you still wanted to do it, or if I wanted you to do it, and I said yes, and then you never asked me today, and I then didn't realize that maybe I should have followed up on that one.
Really, the injury report hasn't changed that much from last week to this week. Offensive lineman Brett Boyko was full practice all week, but he is not on the depth chart. He did not dress. Josiah Shackle is still injured with his ankle injury. So those are the two main injuries other than long-term injuries. So not much has changed. But I will say that they have made some changes to their wide receiver core, sending Malik Flowers back down to the practice roster and bringing in Tevin Jones, who, as you know, they picked up, who was a cut from the Montreal Alouette camp. He came in last 2 weeks ago. So he is in the lineup in a backup role, but all things would suggest that you will see Tevin Jones on the field hopefully making an impact.
Well, it sounds like he'll also be special teams. He's being brought in a little bit for special teams. The real change, defensive line, McKnight out, Alfano in on the defensive end spot. So we'll see what happens. I had the D-line, I think, through 2 games. I've liked that front 7 for the most part. Like, they struggled a little bit with Walter Fletcher last week. But overall, I think that I've liked the front 7 for the Elks this season.
I have as well.
I hopefully this one injury doesn't bring them down or anything. I don't have a reason that it would. But that's the one change from the front 7. When we look at the Toronto Argonauts and some players to watch there, I need to bring up wireless mouse. I'm learning that right now. You got Cameron Dukes, who is the starting quarterback for the Toronto Argonauts. It was supposed to be Chad Kelly as of a few months ago, but he is suspended 7 games due to conduct. With allegations, and it's been settled out of court with a termination of a female and unwarranted advances. So Cameron Dukes gets his 4th career start for the Toronto Argonauts. When you look at some of their big players, Kadeem Carey, running back, he had a touchdown in Week 1. The receiving core, you've got Devaris Daniels, who's actually been just a solid receiver for the Argos for the last couple of years. He's out with an injury. The guys to watch, Coxie, Rashid Belly, who comes from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers from the last few years, and Brissett. Defensively, you've got McManus in a little linebacker spot. But the big player that Edmonton Elks fans will remember and know, it is Jake Serezna, as he's on the defensive line for the Argos. He was part of that trade from this offseason where Curly's Gittins Jr. came to Edmonton. Jake Serezna went the other way. Let's take a look at the weather. I was looking at it earlier. It's 22 degrees in Toronto. With the humidex, it feels like 30. But there's a chance of showers and thunderstorms.
Oh, so we might be doing overtime.
I saw that, and that's what I immediately thought. I went, no, please,
what?
no. I don't want a delay. They have a rainfall warning underway right now. They're under severe thunderstorm watch. Just a watch. Do not turn to a warning. I do not. You want a delay here?
I want to spend more time with you. So, yes. Yes, I do.
You won't after the delay.
Matt.
You'll be sitting there going, I want to go do the post-game show.
You know, I was doing a lot of yard work yesterday and today. So for me to be able to leave the house at 3 o'clock to come do this was very welcome. So, yes, I would love to spend more time with you. Of course.
Well, I do actually have questions.
I missed you. You were away all week.
I was away. Well, not all week. I was away for a few days. But I have some lawn questions to ask you after.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I do have some lawn questions.
Every time, everywhere I go, it's a farm report.
Well, I don't care about the farm part of it. It's the cutting of the lawn.
Okay.
I'm very intrigued how you do something.
Okay.
So we'll get into that.
Okay.
On the Green and Gold Kickoff show today, we will get to 3 stories. We'll hear from the head coach, general manager, and presidents of football ops of the Edmonton Elks, Chris Jones. We'll get to our Cool Bet prop of the game. The Cool Bet Game Day Parlay is up exclusively at Cool Bet that we built for tonight's game. Your thoughts always welcome. The Nasty Chat on YouTube, or you can text us in the Paris Jewelers inbox, 780-218-9999. Before we get to our question of the day, we are live at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge just off Fort Road. We've got these wall of TVs behind us for you to watch any sort of game that you want. There's also TVs over here for the horse tracks, which hopefully you have better luck with the horses today, Jay, than you did last week.
Well, I'll print a $20 ticket, and we'll go $5 at a time and see.
Sure.
I mean, it's...
You did better over there on the tables and all of that.
Yeah, I'm up on the year over there.
But not over here.
And that's going to continue.
But you could come watch the Elks game, but also you could come just watch any sort of sports that's going on. This would be a great place for the Euros as well as the Copa America. And I was actually talking to Renee. She said yesterday for the Oiler game, it was a 6 o'clock start, filling up at like 2 o'clock here. So if you're looking for a spot to come on Monday, Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge will be a place you want to come to, but get here early because this place will fill up.
Well, did you see the lineup for the Moss Pit?
Yes.
Corey B was downtown, doing a lot of work down there, and I think he was just spending the afternoon there drinking, but he was sending pictures. The Moss Pit was lined up around the corner at 2:30.
Yep. People are fired up.
And what
Monday's
going to
be an interesting day.
Obviously, we're here to talk a different Edmonton-based sports team, but what a victory!
First team since, 42? To force a Game 7 even?
And they're going to do it.
After down 3-0?
They're going to do it.
Don't put that out there.
Wow, it's hard not to.
Don't jinx things. Don't jinx things. That's all I'm going to say.
I've been right
careful.
about it all along. So.
Oh, you said it was going to be a 3-0 series for the Panthers, and then the Oilers were going to come back?
I said when it was 3-0 and they let them get that one win, I said that was a mistake. I said if they do make it back for or if they do win Game 5 and it goes to Game 6, I said if there's a Game 6, there's going to be a Game 7.
Let's get to our question of the show. This comes from Glue Guy. Edmonton Elks 0-2 on this season. Third game of an 18-game season. They're on the road taking on the 1-0 Toronto Argonauts. Is this a must-win for the Elks? We have a poll up on our Twitter account, but you could also text the 780-218-9999 Paris Jewelers inbox or jump into the Nasty Chat. Are we already at a must-win game for the Elks? On Twitter, early voting, 88% saying yes, can't drop to 3-0, while 12% say no, it's too early in this season. Jay, this was your question. I'll throw it to you.
Well, the reason I asked it is because I'm happy to see the supporters that are on the right side of this saying yes. This is a must-win.
Really?
Yes, because if they drop this game, they're going into BC next week, and you've seen what they've been doing other than week 1. I believe for Chris Jones's livelihood, for a lot of players on this team, today is a game that they can get. Now, I can go into it here, Maddie, because I want to, I'm the glue guy. I'm positive. I like to look at the positive. Unlike this guy who's half glass empty, I'm half.
I don't have a glass
full
today right now, so I'm good.
But I want to share something with all you listeners out there. In 2020, after the Edmonton offense, after 2 games, in 2023, 6.5 points per game. This year, 20.5 points per game average. That's plus 14. Net yards was 197 last year. This year, it's 353. Second down conversion was 29%. This year, it's 56%. That is an increase of 27%. This is a much better team. But there's a caveat here. They cannot lose this and then go to potentially 0-4 because then there's a bye week, and we've stated it all year, mostly you, and I'd hate for you to be right. So they need to grab this game today.
There's a lot of people that might be upset that if I'm right, because I will very much let people know that I'm right. You looking for headphone volume?
Yeah.
The green one. That's your headphone volume.
Need to hear you a little bit more. But yes,
I'll let
it
you
is
finish
must
because I have a lot to say on this.
It is must win, and it's strictly because they're not going to win next week, at least in my opinion. I believe that's a harder task. Now, anything can happen. It's sports. That's why they play the damn game. But this is a game that you can get. The problem is we don't know necessarily what Toronto's all about. I think this Edmonton squad is obviously vastly improved from what fans were used to last year. So they need to do this. Chris Jones needs to do this. I think Chris Jones' job is at serious risk if they drop this game.
I will get to that later in the show. I will get to the Chris Jones part to this later in the show. For the franchise and for the team, is this a must-win? We're opposite. You're saying a lot of good this season. They're a better team, but also now it's a must-win. I'm going with I'm not liking what I'm seeing. This is going exactly how I predicted this season.
I don't know how you could not like what you've
But
seen.
I could say that this isn't a must-win. Not even close to being a must-win. For multiple, one is an 18-game season. And the BC Lions, everyone wants to famously go to that one. It happened once, but hey, look, the St. Louis Blues were last team in the NHL, and they went on to win the Stanley Cup. And look at what the Oilers are doing right now. Like, it can happen again. They went 1-6. 2011, I think it was, when they won the Grey Cup. They started off 0-5. I also look at the schedule at, like, if they lose to BC, they're 0-4. They get a bye week. I look at the schedule after. I see Ottawa, Hamilton, Saskatchewan. I see 3 to 4 possible wins.
Sure.
They could. The Riders 2-0, but the Elks could have beat them in game one, so there could be a win. The Ticats don't scare me, and the Red Blacks still not fully where I am with them. I think the Elks could go win those. You're back to 500. Just like that, snap of the finger potentially, you could be back to 500 based on how this team has played and what you could project at what they can go do. So dropping to 0-4, I see a path to getting back to 500. And that's why I can't go, must win. Can't go must win. For the team itself and for playoff hopes this year, that will then, if they drop to 0-4, it's one of those Ottawa games. I will say both of those would be must wins to me. They can't drop either of those because then it takes away everything else. But when I see the schedule after the bye week, it changes my full feelings of the Edmonton Elks and whether this is a must win for this team already or if they lose, I still see that path there. So, no, I'm with the minority, the vast minority here. But I know that there's the emotions in this one. 10% saying no too early,
now, Matt,
so I'm with them.
While I agree with you that it is a long season, and it's particularly the CFL, anything can happen. Many of the pundits, I guess we're now pundits as well, would say that the season doesn't start till Labor Day.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Sir Pundit. So maybe I can now be called a pundit.
You're a pundit now. Okay, I guess I would have been a pundit. I've been doing this show since 2015. So,
but here's the thing. Knowing sports is a very much so emotional battle, and I feel strongly that Edmonton has been in both of those games and deserved to win both of those games. This team could be. I get they're not.
So then why is this a must-win, though?
Because I think they deserve it. And I think psychologically, sports psychology-wise, they could really use it and get over the hump.
But if they go 0-3, let's then say jump to 0-4, is this season done? Or do they have a chance at the playoffs?
No, absolutely they do.
Then that's where it's not a must-win. Then it's not a must. Must-wins to me, when I hear...
It is for the team, man. It is.
But that's
case closed.
But to me, must-wins means for the season. Can this team salvage a season? And it's without question, they absolutely still can. That's where I go with the must-win. When I hear must-win, that's what I go to.
Leave it to Matt to find and I'm going to use a Tommy Gazzola word here, the minutia inside the question.
It's
it's a must-win. There's no question.
Well, then every game's a must-win.
Well, damn right it is.
In your argument. Then what kind of question is this?
No. It is right now because and I'm saying for the team. For that team.
But my point, like, if they lose, do you think mentally they're fragile that they won't be able to recover this season?
I don't know.
Because then I could agree with that part. Then I could agree there saying, this might be must-win.
I've seen a pretty resilient group and team thus far.
So that's why, if they drop to 0-4, I still see a path to them getting back to the playoffs or getting to the playoffs. And that's why I can't go full out. Like, must win is if they lose, we're pressing the panic button.
Well, and
sirens are going.
You are. You will. If they lose today, trust me, that button's going to be pushed, and it's going to be full-blown. Natty against Chris Jones, and MBT sucks, and Trey Ford chants. You're going to hear it all, folks. And just,
Dave
in the nasty chat, about that, Maddie, about DeBlanco.
Yeah.
They're
He goes, hey, guys, what is going on with DeBlanco?
They're heralded number 1 overall draft pick. He has been making a difference for this team. He's just, unfortunately, behind Niles Morgan. And I actually don't think that's a bad thing. The jump from NCAA to the CFL is a jump. Still.
But I will say this. He had spent some time in the NFL. He spent some time in the USFL. One of the reasons he was drafted was because he could play right away.
He is.
But not like he was play right away in the defense. And he's not.
Well, I mean, obviously he's not.
Throw that out there.
If he was better than Niles Morgan at the middle position, he'd be playing.
I just thought he'd play in one of those, when they first drafted him in the Will or Sam spots. I thought that's where he was slotted because Konar leaves. I thought there was the replacement for Konar. But they like what they've seen from Anderson O'Neill, and they've been great. Right now I'm not going to critique why that he's not there. But that's what I envisioned, and I think a lot of fans envisioned when DeBlanco was drafted, that, this guy's going to play alongside Niles Morgan. Why isn't he? Because then he was told, he's a 26-year-old, I think it was. He was supposed to be able to jump in right away and possibly make an impact right away. And special teams, there is the impact, but that's not the sexiness for fans.
Sure, it's not. But as a player,
for a football player,
that's
team,
the best thing you can have. If you're known as a special teams dog, that is one of the nicest places to be in the locker room because you get so much respect from your teammates when you're busting your ass on special teams, knowing that you're not there for the potential big plays on defense and offense, but you take that job seriously. And ask Jed Roberts. Jed Roberts, one of the greatest Eskimos to ever play. That was his main number one focus was special teams, and he owned it. He loved special teams, and he was very dominant on it. So.
Before we get to our 3 storylines of this game, 780-218-9999, Paris Jewelers inbox, Babouche Stash. Been waiting all day for this one, boys. MBT and Gittins are going to connect for a TD for sure. Cool bet hotline of the day. We will get to our cool bet.
Let's go.
Don't say it. We'll get to our cool bet props later on, but let's jump into the 3 storylines. Which storyline number 1 to me, it's former players going up against their old teams. When it comes to the Edmonton Elks, quarterback McLeod Bethel-Thompson, wide receiver Curly Gittins Jr., kicker Boris Beatty, and kick returner / running back Javon Leake, all playing their former club. While on the defensive side of things, Jake Serezna, he's going up against his former team, which is the Edmonton Elks. I'm fascinated to see. We see this in sports, players going up against their old teams. And like McLeod Bethel-Thompson, he's a unique one in this because he left. He left to go to the UFL, and then he chose to come to Edmonton because they had quarterbacking figured out in Toronto. When it comes to Javon Leake, they chose not to re-sign him. I guess in the end, they clearly didn't give him what he wanted, so that allowed him to come to Edmonton. Same with Boris Beatty. Curly Gittins Jr., though, is the big one because he got traded.
Yeah.
And that's the same with Jake Serezna. Those two I'm most specifically noticing here because it's one of those where they're going up against the team that said, we don't need you anymore. Go away. We're going to bring this guy in. We don't need you for this. And to see what type of impact these 2 players have on them specifically, I'm starting with those 2. That is something I'm very interested to watch today. Can Curly Gittins Jr. continue his hot start for the Elks this season? He's in the top 10 of receiving. Where is it officially? Because the Elks have 3.
Well, Curly Gittins has 16
Elks
receptions. He's tied for the league's best in receptions.
The Elks have 3 receivers in the top 11 in receiving. Curly Gittins Jr. when it comes to receivers.
And
after yesterday, it changes from yesterday. Why am I not seeing him right now? Thank you. 155 yards. 2 really good games. I'm expecting that to continue.
Oh,
Jake Serezna, he's looking at this offensive line for the Edmonton Elks too, probably, and licking his chops.
You could say that. I mean, I think Jake Serezna plays better when he's on the inside in the interior of the defensive line. Due to injury, though, he's been forced outside where it might be harder for him to be as impactful. But you're right. I mean, but every time we've talked about the offensive line, T-Roy in the house, how's it going, dog? Every time we've talked about this O-line.
And he's got the green and gold hat.
They've risen to the occasion, and they've done some pretty good things. Now,
but
Serezna did say in an interview earlier this week with TSN that there's a little more on the line tonight, right? Facing off against a team that essentially, yes, and you're right. He was traded away, but the same can be going through Curly Gittins Jr.'s mindset right now, who, like you say, and you called it early on, is that you figured that MBT and Curly Gittins would have that immediate impact given the history that they have, both played in Toronto and did very well together, and that seems to be carrying forward. But yeah, you look at all those inner matchups, even Boris Beatty. I mean, I know that's a part of your exclusive, but for him to go back and have a game, it matters. It does matter going back, facing your team that you are on. You want to show up and ball out. No questions asked.
Is this the one Javon Leake returns it?
Matt, we're not at the cool bet segment of this, but if I could have found that, there be a special teams.
Oh, that one.
A special teams touchdown. I would have taken that. That's the first one I looked for. But yes, guys, get up.
He's plus 275 to score a touchdown.
Yeah, that's true.
Anytime,
but if it was specifically special teams,
return.
It would be higher odds.
You called it before game one. You said, is he going to have one? I was like, no chance. And he almost did. In the end, he didn't. But he almost did. So I just wonder if that former team, he's done it at BMO, maybe this is the one that elevates him. When it comes to McLeod Bethel-Thompson, though, coming off a rough week last week, when we broke down why the Elks lost, we put him as number one. 2 poor interceptions, 2 poor throws. There were other reasons they lost. There's the Dylan Mitchell drop. There's a few other things, and we will get to those. But I'm intrigued to see how MBT bounces back from a poor game. After week 1, we sat and said he wasn't the reason they lost.
Bad.
He was pretty good.
Yeah.
Last week, if you look at some of the numbers, you take the interceptions out, he still wasn't bad.
Yep.
But he didn't get it done. He couldn't carry the team to a victory, and he had 2 very poor interceptions. But he's going against his former club. What do you think we're going to see from MBT today?
Well, it depends on what MBT does. If he is trying to do it all himself and force things into situations where, like that last interception last game, he should not have thrown that ball. He should have taken the sack because he was under pressure. He underthrew and made a poor pass, which ultimately was a huge factor in that game, given that they were in scoring position already. So I think if he can manage the game, manage his game, manage that offense a little bit better, then you might get this back to seeing the MBT that we all saw in week 1, which, it was very impressive, right?
Yes. But that's the thing that you pointed out there. Is he going to try to do too much? But also, is he going to try to do too much because it is his former club? Is that going to be added on? And I hope not. I hope he doesn't care that he's going against his old club. I hope that he's just focused with the Edmonton Elks because, again, it wasn't like he was traded. It's not a revenge game for McLeod Bethel-Thompson. But I don't know what it would be like to play against your old team. Does that make you want to be like, yeah, that banner was I helped lead them to that banner, even though didn't play in the, got hurt during the game. But I helped lead them to that banner. I'm going to show them that they should have maybe done a little bit more to get me or keep me or whatever. I hope he doesn't have that because I don't know if he's a quarterback that could go deal with that little extra. Well, he is also 24 and 25 as a starter in his career.
That's right. Which
is below 500.
That's correct.
But
fourth on the Argos list of all-time passers.
Well, that's not
with 13,261 yards. He's not a bad quarterback. We'll agree to disagree on that right now.
I think he's a fine quarterback.
Fine.
He's better than fine, but he's not great.
I don't think he's great either, but I don't think you need to be great.
Well, when you're not going to start Trey Ford and develop him, yeah, you better be great.
Nah.
That's why this was happening. He was supposed to come in and win. I expect greatness now. This is the reason he was brought in,
and that's where manage the game and manage that offense. And I know we're going to get to it here more, but that turnover ratio has been
not
awful.
Good.
No.
Okay.
You want to get to it? We can.
No. We will get to that. I actually have a name I have to bring up first, and that is Trey Ford. Do you think there's pressure on MBT, knowing that maybe Trey Ford will get the call today? Is there a way we see Trey Ford today? If you're Chris Jones, is this you still letting MBT ride the whole game? Is this a situation where maybe, and I should throw Jarius Jackson this because he is ultimately the offensive coordinator, is this a moment where, okay, didn't win the first 2 better games, but you still didn't win, build those packages and we see some packages of Trey Ford? Or is this, if they're down by 7-10 points, midway through the fourth, do you look for the spark with Trey Ford?
If they're down 7-10 points in the second half, you're not going to see Trey Ford.
Well, but I'm very intrigued to just see where the leash that Chris Jones has McLeod Bethel-Thompson on in this game. Is it a really long one still?
I think it's pretty long, but I don't think it's really long. I think if they're down 2-3 scores in the first quarter, then you could maybe see that change at halftime coming. It's hard to do it mid-game before you have a chance to go over and talk with Trey Ford, which would be at halftime.
Well, he did it once.
Yeah, so
he did it. Toronto wins 33-10 from this guy.
Well,
that's a solid prediction to a degree, if you're an Argo fan. But there you go. Our predictions are coming later in this game. We got our first prediction of the show, and it's 33-10 Argos. I got to mark that one down. Argos 33-10. Oh, this definitely keeps me off the hook for a prediction.
Well, Calvin C. on the Nasty Chat, does MBT have almost unlimited leash due to his contract? And Jones' reluctance to play Trey Ford.
This is where I'm fascinated in watching this, in that if, we get to the third quarter and the Elks are trailing and you see McLeod Bethel-Thompson have a couple of ill-advised throws and one leads to an interception. Are we seeing Trey Ford? When are we going to start seeing that potential where Chris Jones might have to tighten that leash? Or is it Chris Jones is going to go down with MBT? And that's something I'm fascinated about this one, too, because that is something else McLeod Bethel-Thompson might have to start being focused on is, are we going to have to start looking at his job? Or am I just too much of a Trey guy?
Yeah, your vision is clouded because McLeod Bethel-Thompson could come out here and play a totally fine game,
and then that doesn't
and lead this team to their first victory, right? So
but after when you're in a win now season and you're 0-2 to start, and you're coming off a poor performance last week, and you've talked about must-win game.
Oh yeah, I agree.
That's where I go with.
I'm not going to.
Where's this leash? Where's this leash now?
Well,
is it going to stay long?
If Trey Ford comes in the game, they're not going to be winning. At that point, anyways. I mean, hey, if he comes in the game late and leads them to a comeback.
But the question then starts coming when does he start?
I think we're talking too much semantics right now.
Sure, fair. But that's what I think. That's part of this to me watching this is seeing if MBT's not going, are we going to be needing to watch number 2 and seeing what's happening with number 2? Or is that just keep that out of mind because Chris Jones won't do anything with that?
It would be interesting to see because if that did happen, I would say that Chris Jones is looking over his shoulder too and trying to protect his own ass, by getting Trey Ford in, which is what the fans have wanted. So if that does happen, I'd tip my cap to him and say touche, because he's now just looking out for himself, just giving the fans what they want. But I'm not, as hard as it is for you to believe, I'm not an anti-Trey Ford guy. I'm not. I'd love to see a Canadian quarterback come in and lead any team to a Grey Cup, a winning season. But MBT was the guy that was brought in here to perform and to win. And need I remind you that they were very close to doing that.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's still 0-2.
It is.
And I've already went over it earlier in the show that the stats have shown that this is a greatly improved team from last year to this year. So you can't deny that. You can't say that it's all on MBT and that MBT stinks and that's why look at other players. I mean, I've said it before.
No, but whenever change needs to happen, it's the quarterback, right?
It can be that, but why isn't it Purifoy? Why isn't it Mitchell that dropped a sure touchdown? Why? It's you can point at the quarterback because that's the face of the franchise. You can point at Chris Jones because he's the head coach and general manager and has made these decisions to bring these guys in.
We're gonna jump to storyline number 3 and get to number 2 after because this transitions nicely there. This is the Green and Gold Kickoff Show. Matt Iwanyk, J Milne live, Centric Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, just off Ford Road, where every day is game day. I think VR Montenegro might be coming. Goes greetings, Green and Gold Nasty. Sorry I'm late. Oh no, he late to the Nasty Chat.
He had an important meeting at 4:20.
Very important meeting at 4:20. And we got Troy. T-Roy is here. The daily special for today at Centric Casino. We got the game day special for the Elks. It's on right now until an hour after the game. Cheese and jalapeno smoky with the waffle fries, which do well with vinegar. We tried that last week. You got the 6 o'clock lager as well as game day draft. When it comes to the day's daily special as well, which goes all day, 10 a.m. until midnight, $12.99 prime rib sandwich. That's your daily special for a Saturday. Prime rib sandwich for only $12.99. That is right here at Centric Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, just off of Fort Road, where every day is game day. My second storyline we'll get to, third storyline, was the pressure on Chris Jones. And this comes to the question of the night, which was, or the day, is this a must-win game? What we're talking about, MBT, you're talking about does he go to Trey Ford? I said this on the post-game show last week, and I stand by this. I think tonight's game could seal Chris Jones's fate.
That's why I call it a must-win.
But that's where it's different. Like the must-win for the franchise and for Chris Jones, I separate the two. I don't care about Chris Jones personally. I don't care about his job status. I care about the franchise.
Neither do I.
But the must-win, is this a must-win for Chris Jones? I would say 80% yes. If they lose like last week as they did to Montreal, he's safe against it. Like I still think it's good.
Okay.
If you're losing by 10+, what did the Argos win by last year? The Elks played the Argos twice. The Argos won by margins of 23 and 12 points. Neither of the two games I really felt were in question that I thought the Elks could come and win those football games. If we have that tonight, if we watch a game where the Elks aren't into it, the Elks aren't close, and you have Chris Jones not choosing to make a change at QB if QB is struggling, I'm going to have that as a little added to this. I think Rick Lawlisher might make that decision to make a move. I don't think it will happen before next week because it's a short week. We're talking about playing Saturday, then Thursday. It's a little too soon to make that change, but I could see this be sealing his fate where Rick Lawlisher goes, once that BC game is over, we're making a coaching change and starting the process to make that move because it's not an easy process with the Edmonton Elks. Initially, it's a process that requires the Board of Governors approval, but now there's a sale that is potentially on the horizon for this franchise. I'm assuming you're going to then have to talk with the partners that are interested parties just so that they're aware. You got to keep them always informed with what's going on. So there's a little bit more. And because of all that, I think tonight could be very well Chris Jones coaching for his job as president, GM, head coach of the Edmonton Elks.
I agree, and that's why I don't care about him personally. I don't know the guy, but in his mind, he better think this is a must-win game.
Sure.
Okay, that's why I suggested that I'm very much so on that side. That for Chris Jones, he better have this mentality, and I hope he has infused that mentality into this team that this is a must-win. Because yes, if heaven forbid they come out and play a lackluster game, non-emotional, detached, I would say I don't even know if they wait till the bye week. You can't have that. But I just don't see it. I don't think it's in this team's DNA. They haven't played lackluster football this year. They've played very good football. But it's the saying that I've said, and I'll say it again. Critical mistakes at critical times have killed them. Can they fix it tonight? If they fix that tonight and don't have those hiccups at those times, then I can't see them losing tonight.
This is also where I'll be intrigued to your point of how much does he feel the pressure. We want Trey Chance happening last game. If he goes to Trey Ford, is that him coaching for his job?
100%.
Right? Like, is that move?
100%.
Is he going to make that move because he's feeling the pressure?
Yeah.
And he makes that move, and that's where I go back to. I'm very intrigued to see if Trey Ford comes in. I don't think Chris Jones is that guy, and truthfully, I respect that.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he did.
I respect that coach who goes, I'm going to go my way. I'm not going to try to change who I am. If that ultimately is my downfall, it's my downfall.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do something that I don't believe in just for the sake of maybe living another day. There is a respect I have for that. But I look, if Trey Ford comes in the second half, to me, it'll be interesting to see where the Elks are at that moment. And is this a move that he thinks it's the best move, or is for the franchise to win that team to win that game, or is this the best move to keep Chris Jones employed for another week to take on BC or to take on Ottawa after those bye weeks? And that's why, like, to me, the first part, talking about MBT and the Trey Ford, but now that goes into this storyline where it's the heat is on Chris Jones. Yep. Eyes are on Chris Jones. Last week's post-game show, a lot of people calling out Chris Jones.
Sure. Deservingly so.
That's what we're focused on. And maybe the Elks will go the other way. Maybe they make that coaching change and then they go win the Grey Cup, just like the Oilers are set to potentially go win a Stanley Cup.
It's fine to call for his head after, and I think those are two very emotional losses as well for the fans.
Because they deserve to win.
But
you can make that argument. They deserve to win.
So maybe there's some sympathetic and just general, but there is just a lot of disdain for Chris Jones, no matter what he would do. Even if this team starts winning, there's a lot of general disdain towards him. I don't know why. There's been that for a
You don't know why?
while.
You don't know why?
Well, I don't know. Is it because he's American?
He bolted after a Grey Cup. That's where a lot of the anger comes from Chris Jones, is that immediately after they win the Grey Cup, he left and went to Saskatchewan and took his whole staff.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
But do you blame him? Why wouldn't?
I don't get it. Hey, look, I was a Chris Jones defender until this year. Until December 2023 when it first was reported, or to January, that MBT is going to sign in Edmonton, I have been a Chris Jones defender.
Yeah.
I defended that move. I defended his move to Cleveland. I wanted him here multiple times, but that annoyed a lot of people, and people have not forgotten that one. And now that he's back and he hasn't won yet, it's just another reason to dislike him. That's what it comes down to. That's where it all started. No one had issues with Chris Jones prior to him leaving to Saskatchewan. People loved Chris Jones.
Yeah,
So
sure, but I mean,
they loved the glasses. They loved his motorcycle. They loved all of that.
tell me
But he
one
bolted.
person that is a fan of the Elks that if you were offered a job that's going to pay you probably twice what you're getting paid here, you wouldn't just leave and take your whole staff and try and rerun it there. I mean, that's just, come on.
I agree, but that's where the basis is, and fandom has that emotional aspect to it. Elks, Argos coming up just after 5 o'clock. BMO Field out in Toronto. You can watch it on TSN. Before we get to our final storyline, Dan Ralph from the Canadian Press talks about former players taking on their teams.
Yes.
There's a bigger list. So for Toronto, there is Elks defensive lineman, former Elks defensive lineman, Jake Serezna. For the Edmonton Elks that are former Argos, you got McLeod Bethel-Thompson, you got Dakota Prukop, you got offensive lineman Shane Richards, you got defensive lineman Sam Echemapong, you've got Curly Gittins Jr., you got Boris Beatty, you got Javon Leake, and then the newly signed from going into last week, defensive back Josh Haggerty. So there's a lot of former Argos that are going up against their former team tonight. Just one former Elk going up against his former team. That also does make sense in the fact that the Elks haven't been that good over the last number of years, so why would other teams want your players? Whereas the Argos have been a good team the last couple of years.
Yep.
Naturally, you're going to want some of those players. But a decent list of former Argos going up against their team. Let's get to our last story of the game, which was my second story, actually, but we moved it around because it worked for the better flow.
Totally blew my mind. I don't deal well with change.
Clean football. Can the Elks play a full 60 minutes of clean football? And what I mean by clean football, it's controlling those mistakes and just limiting those turnovers. Mistakes will happen. You're going to play full 60 minutes. Mistakes are going to happen, but those big ones.
Yeah.
Last week, we saw Dylan Mitchell drop a sure touchdown. Who knows what that game would have been if he caught that. Last week, we saw McLeod Bethel-Thompson have 2 poorly thrown balls that turned into interceptions. Last week, we saw the Elks force a turnover on 3rd and 15 after the Owls went for it. But while the Elks only had 4 penalties last week, a couple of crucial ones, including that one, which gave the Owls the ball. They got a repunt and send it deep, as opposed to being in Alouettes territory to start that. Week 1, mistakes. Javon Leake fumble. At what point is this team going to be able to go out there and play that 60 minutes clean football? And I think Dusty said it on the morning show at one point this week. Maybe it was on Monday, and he said you could just, one of the most boring things, you could just talk about 60 minutes. You could just say that. But actually, for this team, it actually is legit.
Yes.
Because for too long, they just really don't want to play the full 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And what could have happened if they finished the full game? Played hard from first whistle to final whistle last 2 weeks. Are they 1-1? Are they maybe 2-0? Can this team turn that around and clean it up going into week 3?
They have to. It's not a
Yes.
message if they can or can't. It's a must. I mean, they are 8th in the CFL right now in the turnover.
Our light fell down. It's still holding.
It's
Actually,
so
that
good.
works.
That actually works. Cool.
We whoever had the lights of EST prior.
Dustin.
It's broken. One of the things doesn't work. We tried fixing with tape today.
That works.
I don't want to move the camera because it's all good right now. Oh, it does. It does.
Anyways.
People breaking things while I'm in Atlanta.
Yeah, this really.
I could never take a vacation again.
You could see the blood boiling in Maddie when I got here. They're 8th in the CFL in the turnover ratio, which is -3. So that means they've given away the ball 3 more times than they've taken it. Toronto on the other side is +4 currently. So
And they've only played one game.
they played one game.
They were bye week last week.
That is ultimately what's going to decide the game tonight and probably the season going forward. They need to take care of the ball and eliminate those mistakes that are costly because they're happening at the worst points in the game. I mean, Haggerty taking that chop blocking penalty on the great play by a fellow we were talking about earlier, DeBlanco, coming in and filling on that 3rd down gamble by Montreal last week.
Which was also just really stupid gamble. It was a stupid play call.
Silly.
And you were gifted the ball. You were gifted the ball.
They'll take it.
Yep.
They'll take it. Then you get a penalty, and now it's their ball again, and they do the right thing and punt. That would have immediately changed that game. And we've talked ad nauseum about this, but it's just the facts of the matter. I mean, if you're watching this game like we are every week and seeing them and seeing what's happening, it's clear as day what the problem is. And this fact of this turnover ratio at -3, that needs to change. Now, I'm not saying it'll change all in one night, but be better
But
on a regular basis.
it's not even right now having to get the turnovers. Just don't give them.
Don't give it. I mean,
And
that's
just
a
keep
wash,
that at
right?
keep it at -3.
-3.
Keep it there.
Sure.
Just keep it there. Let's get through this game where we're saying it's still -3 because that means you didn't give up the ball more than you received it.
And you could easily say at that point that you'd give yourself a much greater probability of win.
Yeah.
In that instance.
And look, the game was close last week largely too because the defense did play well, limiting the points off of turnovers, which isn't something you always see though. But when you give that ball up, generally does lead to points, and you're just gifting team points. So don't put your defense in those type of spots, and let's see if that could stay at -3. But like, it seems so simple. It all just go clean that up, and where could this team potentially be? And the Edmonton Elks, they're not a top team where like the best teams, they could go through games where they make the mistakes and still find a way to win.
Yeah,
because they're that good. The Elks aren't there yet.
And
the Elks aren't there as a franchise or haven't evolved yet. Where they're at a point where they can afford to have a couple turnovers and find a way to just overcome it. And so they're amplified a bit more when you're the Edmonton Elks. So play clean football.
Yeah, and hey, you know what wouldn't hurt, Matty? A defensive touchdown. Right? If you get something like that, like this defense was firing last week, probably could have scored 1 or 2 defensive touchdowns. That would help and move this in the right direction because that's a positive turnover and points on the board. So yeah, look, it would be nice to see, and I think that defense is more than capable of it. Or special teams, the special teams have been pretty consistently good.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really look at that and say, they've cost us. No, I don't think they have. I mean, in week 1, Beatty missed that 48-yard kick.
And Leake's fumble was on offense, not on special.
That's right. So the specials have been good. Defense have been pretty good.
Although with that, Bleak's got to hold on to the football. We mentioned that last week. He's dropping that ball a little too much. He put the ball on the turf again last week, but picked it up. But eliminate. But that's back to mistake. Limit those mistakes. Clean football.
Agreed.
Can this team do it? Because you're not going to win tonight.
You're not good enough to win with all those errors.
We see the same things that we've seen the last 2 weeks, which
most teams aren't good enough, by the way. Like when the season's over and you look at this turnover ratio.
Sure. Well, let's take a look.
It's going to be pretty clear to see. Oh, that's the top 5 in the turnover ratio. Lo and behold, those are the top 5 teams.
Yeah, but there's also only 9 teams.
I know.
So 5 teams are great.
I know, but it's a pretty accurate stat in terms of telling where your team's at. If you're winning the turnover battle, you're going to be winning more games. It's a fact.
Where I remember 2 years ago was the Bombers took on the Elks. I think the Elks won the turnover battle 2-0. But the Bombers won that football game because they're just a good team that can find a way. When it happens, not all the time, but when there is those mistakes, sometimes there's those games that can make it. By the way, the Bombers being 0-3 though.
I called it. I don't know, what was the spread last night?
The Bombers were favorited by 2.5? I can't remember what I sent out our sheets.
I gotta see
I'll pull it up here quickly. CFL picks. I actually haven't entered any of the picks in. I got -1.5 as of Tuesday. The Bombers were favored by -1.5.
Yeah, I took BC for sure.
Me too.
Yeah. Duck Dad in the nasty chat while you're looking up that turnover ratio stat. Might not be on the Jones MBT train, but want to see a huge Elks win for high school football.
So this is an interesting.
That was the best.
This is an interesting turnover ratio from last year. Toronto was number 1. They won the East in the regular season. Montreal was number 2, +27, +14. No one else in double digits.
Jeez.
Calgary +9.
Wow.
3rd in the West. Winnipeg +8.
Okay.
Montreal or Hamilton, Ottawa, both -4. So 2 non-playoff teams.
Yeah.
BC Lions -12 last year.
Weird.
Turnover ratio. Made the playoffs. We're a great team, but -12. That's an outlier.
I mean,
I'll say that right there.
That is an outlier, but the eventual Grey Cup winner was the number 2.
Yep.
And the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were number 1. I mean, or number 3. So it is a pretty
4. Calgary was 3.
Right. So
that's which I find weird. Is Calgary was also there.
Yeah, you have those top teams.
Yeah.
It's usually a pretty good correlation between your turnover ratio and your impending record.
This is the Green and Gold Kickoff Show. Matt Iwanyk, Jay Milne with you here on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Tune in iHeartRadio as well as those watching on YouTube. Elks, Argos, coming up just after 5 o'clock on TSN. We're live at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge. Let's get now into our cool bet props of the game. We went 0-2 last week with our props. 2-0 week one, though. So we're 2-2.
We're going to get back.
We're 2-2. We need to get back. We need a bounce back performance ourselves here on the show.
I'm going to get it back tonight. I don't know what you're picking, but I'm going to get it back. Because I
guess we're not a team. I guess we don't want to be a team together. No, clearly not. You're putting it. You're putting it all on me.
I'm the guy that said I want bad weather so we can hang out more.
Yeah, but also now you're saying, oh, I'm going to fix things, but you're going to potentially be crap.
Well, okay. I'm sorry.
I was using a we. I was using a we need to bounce back, and we're going to be better. But you're like, no, it's just going to be me.
Do you accept my apology?
No. I'm too bitter. That's who I am. I'm too petty. I'm too petty.
You'll accept it.
Your cool bet. Well, we had the hotline earlier from one person.
The reason why I'm so confident now is because Babbage Stash came
That's who it was. Thank
into
you.
The Paris Jewelers inbox. And I had shown Matt this when I got here, that was my cool bet line of this game anyways, was Curly Gittens Jr. to score a touchdown. As we alluded to earlier, he is tied for the league in receptions at 16. His TD numbers are substantially lower than that. Ratio-wise, he's deserving of a TD, and I think it comes tonight as him and his quarterback are facing off against their old team. Curly Gittens Jr., touchdown scorer, that would be at plus 140.
3 receivers for the Elks going into this week. Gittens Jr., number 9, Mitchell, number 10, Eugene Lewis, number 11 in the Canadian Football League, so 3 in the top 11 right
Not
there.
bad.
And Gittens is one of those guys, and I do like that. We'll get to our cool bet hotline, or our cool bet game day parlay here. The one I'm going with is Boris Beatty over 1.5 field goals, 2 field goals or more.
I like that.
Did it last week, 48 yards. I could see the Elks moving the football in this Argos defense and getting into field goal range. I could see him potentially getting 3. But that's the one I'm going with, partly because it is part of the game day parlay, which is exclusively at CoolBet. Head to coolbet.com. Click on exclusives. Click on Edmonton Sports Talk Parlay. We got McLeod Bethel Thompson throwing for over 275 yards. We got Gittens Jr. 70-plus receiving yards. Boris Beatty 2-plus field goals made. Plus the Elks just to cover 4.5 points in this one. So they don't even have to go necessarily win this game, which is going to be a little difficult. They just have to cover that 4.5. And then that parlay hits when it comes to NBT this season. 2 games over 300 yards. 336 yards in week 1, a 300-yard game last week. So 275 from NBT. Curly Gittens Jr. over 70. As well as Beatty with 2-plus field goals and the Elks covering the line.
But NBT is also leading the league in interceptions. So
but that doesn't matter for my line.
It doesn't matter for your line.
He just has to throw for the yards. Last week he did 300 yards and threw 2 interceptions, so the parlay would have hit then. Or that part of it would have been a check.
And
we're talking about the parlay
here. It's a good
here.
thing we're a team because I backed you up on this. Okay?
Check all that. You're just checking.
Because we're a team.
Absolutely.
Best friends. Forever. No denying that.
I want to get to the question of the night once again, just to update the poll on Twitter as we had. Is it already a must-win game for the Elks? We are sitting at 86% saying yes, can't drop to 0-3. No, too early is at 13%, 13.7%. Jeff saying, although 0-4 going into a bye, maybe we can finally get rid of Jones and the circus can finally leave town. That's the dream. So...
Yeah, because he's the reason that they're 0-2.
Chris Jones?
Yeah.
Yeah, he built a he built a team right now that's not winning. The coach and the GM gets a pass for being 0 while there's teams 0-2, being 2-18 at home in his time here.
It's like nobody here has ever played sports. My God.
It's year 3. Win a football game. Win a football game finally. Get a win.
Do it. You yourself just said that they could come back after the bye week.
Oh, no, absolutely, but I'm sorry. Like he gets blamed for being 0-2.
By him, by Jeff.
Why is Purifoy returning that ball?
From Chris Jones.
Well, he's everything. Here's the thing.
Why did Purifoy drop
when you are the leader of a franchise, when you're a leader of business, anything, it falls on you in the end.
Okay.
Buck stops at you at some point.
Okay.
Coach this team to a victory.
So when you look at the difference from last year to this year in points per game's up 14 points. Net yards up 156 yards. Second down conversion up 27%.
Sure, that's great, Jay.
That's also on Chris Jones.
Sure, 100%. But you want to know what matters? Are the wins up and are the losses down?
Not yet.
Exactly.
Not yet.
And they can't get worse because they were 0-2 last year.
2.
So this is what, like,
2
well,
games.
he doesn't get a pass for. He deserves some blame.
I'm not giving him a pass.
You just said it's not his fault that they lost.
I don't think it is.
Then you're giving him a pass.
No, that's just calling it how it is. He hasn't built a bad football team. They're playing very good football. They just haven't won, and they've lost 2 nail-biting games to 2 pretty damn good football teams. Just saying. Cool yourselves.
We've got to get to our keys to an Elks victory. We also got to get to predictions for this game. But let's first actually now hear from the president of the Edmonton Elks, the general manager and the head coach, Chris Jones, speaking with the media earlier this week.
Short week, now a longer week. How do you take advantage of a longer week?
Yeah, the guys, we've already worked out twice this week. Again, my goal is to be the strongest football team, come week 18 into the playoffs. So, I mean, that's kind of been a big focus of what we've been doing, and had a really good day at work today. We had to come out and really get after it pretty quick because we didn't have but about 45 minutes of work time. But, I was proud of the way they came out and approached today.
Right. Had one game where you had a lead and
yeah, we pretty much moved on. We moved on from that week's over with. It was a 3-point game. Should have won the game. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. We're on to the next week now, and I hate to be that way, but that's what I told them to do. We got to put it to bed and be done with it. And so we got to come out and we've got to do all the things that we know that we've got to do as a football team. I was proud of the fact we didn't take penalties, and we're going to move that forward.
Talk about the positives you've seen and what you're building on?
Yeah, I mean, again, I thought McLeod played pretty decent, but, we can't turn the ball over. It's pretty simple. First week we had some turnovers which were inopportune, and last week certainly hurt us at the wrong time. We've got to not only have yardage and have big plays, but we've got to have the ability to not turn the football over. And so we've, that's kind of where we are as a football team. But I do like their energy. I do like where we're headed, with our positivity.
Looking ahead to Toronto, this is a game in the trenches. Going to be a tough one. They get good O-line, good D-line.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a great test. I mean, just like last week with Montreal. I mean they've been there, they've done that. That's probably one of their biggest strengths. They believe in who they are and what they are, and their players feel like they'll find a way to win football games. And certainly I think Ryan's one of the top play callers in the league.
You got a young quarterback who hasn't started a lot. How do you approach a young? Can you do different things to a guy who hasn't got a lot of experience?
Well, I mean, he's been around some good football. I mean, he won a national championship. I mean, he's a guy that I've known and played for Mike Davis down in the Arena League, Indoor League in Vegas. I mean, so he's a guy that's played some top-notch ball, and he's certainly a better athlete probably than what people think. He's able to move around, buy himself some time if he does get pressure, and that's what I just told Trey. I was like, when we're in Skelly, if all of them's covered, you got to move around for us to give us that true picture.
And he had a pretty good debut with a lot of pressure on him, a lot of eyes on him, and people are expecting, with the situation there.
That's
he
right.
Came through pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, look at his stat line, and didn't turn the ball over, and like I say, I mean, Ryan put him in some really good situations.
Your D-line, through 2 games, where would you assess it as far as the pressure on the quarterback? And I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. That we've been sporadic here or there. We get pressure one play, and then another play's got too much time to throw. I thought in the Saskatchewan game there was some extra clicks that allowed him to find his throws to get down the field on us, and so we did good versus the run, but they're at the end of the game. So we've got to you can't you got to play the entire clock to its expiration.
You're there right. From opening bell to the final whistle, you're right there, but you're chasing a lot. And how much does that expend as far as factor of spending too much energy, that sort of thing, when you're chasing the home?
Yeah, I mean it's tough, to go, tick-for-tack with somebody, but they came out and they went down the field on us. We gave up a big play on like our second play on defense with misalignment, and then had to turn around and offensively went 9 or 10 plays and scored a touchdown, to answer. So I was proud of the resiliency that we showed, and but we've got to learn to play winning football.
What does it mean to have players on your team that have won before? Curley told us after the game that 0-2 starts are common in the CFL. You can have an 0-2 start, you can have a pretty good season after that. How is it important to have players who've experienced that and have had successful seasons and even won?
Yeah, well, they know it's more of a process. It's you can't live forever being down 2 scores, coming back in the fourth. Eventually that goes away. So you've got to find a way to play good football, solid football from the get-go. And we've got to be able to go 4 quarters and finish the thing out when there's zeros on the clock, that you're on the right end of things. All right. Thank y'all.
Needs to flip. There we go. And that was Chris Jones, head coach and general manager of the Edmonton Elks, speaking to the media during this week. Matt Iwanyk, Jay Milne, Green and Gold Kickoff Show, live here at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge. We will get to our prediction for the game, but keys to an Elks victory. Jay, I will start with you.
The keys are simple. We've said it before. I'll say it again. Manage the football. Eliminate mental mistakes and critical mistakes. Like we said before, you're going to make mistakes. But it's timing of everything that has to come together better for Edmonton. I think if they take care of the ball, win the turnover ratio battle, they've done a good enough job in otherwise. If they can do that, I think they have a better than 50% chance at winning this ball game.
I'm going to look at defensive side of the ball, and I'm looking at the front 7, but especially that front 4, and it's going to be getting the pressure on Cameron Dukes. He's 2-1 in his career, but he is only playing in starting his 4th career game. Yes, he goes beat the BC Lions, but you never know what's happening in week 1. I want the pressure on this young quarterback. Make him panic. Make him have to do something. Make him make that decision of whether he's going to throw the football in a risky area or take the sack. I want to see Cameron Dukes under pressure. I think maybe you can get to this young quarterback, and that could help open things up for getting the ball back quicker, or maybe it leads to some turnovers for this defense. We look at things on the other side about keeping it, not turning it over. Maybe this is a way to lead to getting some turnovers and taking that -3 and bringing it a little bit lower. So I am going to look at that the pressure and getting to Cameron Dukes and being in his face all night. A reminder, Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, the game day specials, cheese and jalapeno smoky, 6 o'clock a lager in cans. Jay had one before the show, as well as game day draft on special, as well as the daily special for Saturdays, $12.99 prime rib sandwich. Time to get to predictions. We had a prediction earlier from someone down here who's over there. I don't know his name. He has Argos 33-10, which I could see that. I could see that.
No.
If that's the case, if it's 33-10,
we're burning this casino down.
I'm firing Chris Jones today on the post-game show, I guess. Jay.
I still think that this is a team that's going to eventually get some football luck and the football gods shining on them and have a game that they put it all together. It's hard to say with the weather. I was just looking at the radar around Toronto. It looks like it's going to be missing it to the north. So hopefully that is not as much of a factor. But given that and hoping that they can put it together, I'm going to say the Elks are going to win 28-24.
It's still a rainfall warning in Toronto. They say local amount 50 milliliters.
It's very, very. I looked very acutely as to where it is in relation to the stadium. It doesn't.
Chief meteorologist over here. Actually, I can't say that. You're not one.
No.
Weatherman. Maybe Josh Clausen will award you as an honorary.
Yeah, maybe he can knight me as an honorary.
I should have. I hate bothering him on weekends.
Like an honorary degree.
Glue guy. Or Duck Dad in the nasty chat. I'll give him final word here.
Okay.
Great stuff, Glue Guy. Matt, very tolerable performance.
I appreciate that.
I don't.
To me, that's a compliment.
I don't. Thank you for tuning in to the Green and Gold Kickoff Show. Elks Argos coming up in minutes on TSN. I see it on the screens already. They're coming up there.
That
Come see
screen.
these walls of TVs and watch the Elks game with us at Century Casino. Not just tonight. You can do it at any point this season. And once the game is over, be sure to turn it back on to Edmonton Sports Talk, EST, EdmontonSportsTalk.com, YouTube, TuneIn, iHeart, as we will be on with the Green and Gold post-game show live from Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge once it is over. Thanks again for tuning in to the Kickoff Show. Enjoy the football game. We'll talk to you once it's over.